definitely want that in there.
Okay, my name is Les Miller. I'm a member of the Scotts Valley Band of Pomo Indians in Lakeport, California. And I've been asked to say a few things and speak out for Indian people. And my history in tribal government is I was chairman of the Central California Agency Policy Committee for 4 years in a row, and in that process you have to be elected by the 52 tribes in Central California. Not only was I chairman of that policy committee, but I also was the chairman of the whole state advisory board for the area office of the BIA. I did that for 2 years. It was a lot of responsibility, and but I accepted it at the time, and I learned on the job, and I think that's how all tribal people do, is learn on the job and learn running. Some tribal people are good and some are not so good. Indian country has taken a big step backwards in recent years. I remember talking in the policy committee meetings about what gaming was going to do. Is it going to help us or hurt us? In retrospect, I look back and I remember some of those speeches that I told the 52 tribes, and at points in the state meetings I told about 95 tribes. That, are the tribes going to be in control of their own destinies when it comes to gaming, or will the investors be in charge? And I think we've all seen who's in charge. And it has hurt Indian country drastically. There is no other word you can use but greed. And sometimes you can blame people and other times you can't, because most of the Indian people came from poverty backgrounds, and this is their chance to get the pie in the sky. I love being an Indian, American Indian. I'm Pomo, I'm Caddo, and my father's tribe is the coastal Pomo. And I feel very blessed to be a part of Indian country. I was chairman for Scotts Valley for 8 years and got that off the ground when it seemed so dismal. Steve Elliott got me involved. Steve Elliott's my cousin. He's another member of the Scotts Valley Band who played a huge role in getting our tribe reinstated to federal recognition again after the termination period. Termination period was a black eye in retrospect to the federal government. So I think some of the payback was to get a process for Indian people to sustain their culture and to improve their living conditions. Gaming has to a point, but in other areas it's really hurt Indian country. When you try to take and disenroll tribal members who have lived on the lands as long as anybody, and take them and take their pride away, there is no I think more inhumane thing you can do besides shooting them. I made a promise to the Robinson tribe that I would not frequent that casino for what was done to them, the members that were disenrolled. I have kept that promise. I made that promise to Clayton Duncan, and Wanda Quitiquo. And I will stand by that. And I'm not here to hurt the tribe in different ways. It does go back to their pocketbooks. But as long as you have injustice, we all suffer in Indian country. You open the floodgates to other tribes and they think they can do the same. Then you have a Bureau of Indian Affairs that has literally turned their back on tribal government. They will not take accountability, and that's very sad. Very sad, because I sat on those policy committees back when the Bureau used to get involved in every shape and form in tribal government. And now that gaming's at the forefront, the Bureau washes their hands of what used to be their responsibility. So there are Bureau officials who I know personally that I've worked with before that I'm very ashamed of, because you are Indian people too. It reminds me of in the Western movies, the Indians with the cavalry uniforms on that lived around the fort. And you go hunt your own people down. That's what's happening in Indian country today, by disenrolling them, taking their rights away, not caring for their children or their families, looking the other way while you gorge yourself on their money, on their shares. It's not right in anybody's book. This is the United States of America. Indian tribes are dependent governments, which the government has given them this opportunity to sustain their way of life. But this is not their way of life, disenrolling their own members. I myself are getting charges drummed up against me for speaking the truth, for talking about an investor who was trying to manipulate our tribe. And if telling the truth this day and have it turned on you and have lies told about you so that it makes your tribal members believe that you did something wrong, these con men for these investors are they're really good at what they do. Reminds me of the old whiskey peddlers used to come into camp back in the Western days when the Indians were having hard, and sell them whiskey and take everything they got when they're drunk. Take their women, their children. That's how slavery was incorporated in Indian country. And yet we're doing the same thing, because tribal people, and I put this on to you tribal people, you have got to pick up the books and read. You have to learn tribal government. You have to see what's right and what is wrong. And because they're your father, your uncle, your aunt who are doing these things, and you turn your cheek and say it's okay. It's not okay. It's not okay. That is no way to lead your tribe, because you are just as bad for doing that as the investors who push the issue. I have been a licensed contractor in the state of California for 17 years now. I've worked hard all my life, as my mother did, Rose Miller, and she pushed us to work. And I work hard, but I love work. And when I was in tribal government, I worked hard at it. And my work was known throughout the United States. I was on the national spotlight. I was chairman of the Land and Trust Committee for the Congress of American Indians, the National Congress of American Indians. I was very proud of that work. I flew all over the country involved deeply in changing the regulations for taking land into trust. I worked with about 6 different attorneys on that process, along with Dory Beats with the California Indian Lands Office. I was very proud of that time, that effort. I'm not very proud of what's happening these days. I see those same people that I've worked with and respected back in those days when we were fighting for sovereignty. We were fighting for recognition. We were fighting for gaming. And now look what we're doing. You know, we have cousins. My cousins are trying to disenroll me for telling the truth. They think more of money than they do their own family. My God, my grandpa and my grandmother would roll over in their grave if they see what these guys are doing. I don't recognize them. Is that what money and gaming has done? If that's what it's done, then we don't need it, because it's eroding our culture. We're not teaching our kids anything. We're teaching them, here's a handful of money. Go do what you want to do. Do you realize that the drug use in Indian country is 26% higher than the national average? 26% above the national average. Most people can't even comprehend that. But it's happening. And the more money that tribes make, the addiction gets worse. And who makes good when tribal people are addicted to drugs? Who do you think gets the money? I'll leave that to your mind. Somebody is pushing the issue in the background, always, and the tribes get the blame. You know, when you elect a council, they're supposed to represent you, not represent themselves. But when you have the Bureau of Indian Affairs who are not listening to the issues, and it makes you wonder what they're listening to or what they're accepting. I've had a couple of times where I wrote to senators and congressmen